I feel in a way it's actually beautiful because it's forcing a lot of people to actually stand up and not just letting, like the news take over or the government to say what's happening, but actually, like a lot of people start spreading good news online. And I love that. I love seeing that because the news is always focusing on the negative stuff to promote, to make money, to profit.
Yes.
And but so more and more people are starting just to broadcasting whatever is good happening in everybody's life, and this is wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The media will always broadcast the most clickbait story
Yeah.
that's going to get the most likes. And it's sometimes not always a truth. It's maybe a version of the truth. So yeah, awesome. Um, okay. I don't know if Heidi can hear us. Can you hear us?
Yeah, right now I can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I had difficult, some difficulties to get connected, but I'm here.
That's okay. If you want to do just a quick intro and just say how you're feeling this week with everything that's going on, and then we're going to have Ram go ahead and take it over.
Okay.
So yeah, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and just do an intro for us. Who you are?
Well, I'm Heidi. I live in Mexico, and what else should I say? I don't know.
You can just say a little bit about what you do. I know this was your first call, and really just how you're feeling this week with everything that's going on in the world, and that's it.
Okay, well, I'm living Playa del Carmen. We are not facing good times here, well, from my perspective, at this part. Most of the people here, we depend of the tourism. We lost our jobs. Most of the hotels are closed, and the economy here is tough. And this is something that is not just happening here, it's in general. And we are not, we don't have a lot of cases of the COVID here, but we are taking the measurements that we have to, that not being outside, have some distance, and clean our hands, wash our hands, and what can I say?
No, that's great. That's great. And so you're feeling okay. It sounds like you're feeling very just like, let's just keep doing what we're supposed to do. And it sounds like your spirits are good.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And then I'll turn it over to Ram. So Ram is a dear friend of mine. We actually studied at the same school in Thailand. And I will let you just do your introduction because I don't want to mess up. I know you're an astrologist, but I will let you take it away because I know you can go into that better than I can. So thank you for being here with us.
So thank you, Jennelle, for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here and to meet all you guys. My introduction to what I do is that basically, as Jennelle knows, I've been studying yoga, meditation. I'm sounding some loop of my own voice, so maybe if everyone can go on mute, maybe it would help out. Yeah, okay, it's better now, thanks. So my name is Ram, I'm 33, I'm from Israel. About 12 years ago, I started studying yoga, tantric forms of yoga basically. And meditation and yoga and tantra has been the main scope of my life for most of this time, practicing and then teaching. And on top of that, I added the dimension of astrology. I've studied astrology for even longer time than I've been studying yoga. And along the years, I've developed various styles of using the yoga system, some stuff from various shamanic therapeutic systems that I've learned, meditation and astrology to support people, and especially couples and individuals, to learn how to incorporate the sexual dimension and the romantic dimension in a more harmonious and productive way based on what the horoscope reveals and based on the traditions that I've mentioned. So that's a brief intro into what I do. And the more I do these things, the more I feel compelled to do more deep, long-term work with people that are more devoted to a process. So my experience was to teach a lot of like workshops, weekend workshops, big workshops, or some individual consultations, but that would usually be meet a lot of people briefly, give them lots of knowledge, and then never seeing them again. And at the moment, I'm transitioning into doing longer term deep processes with people that are committed to work together. So in the Tantra universe, at the moment, I'm developing a project of making the Tantric teachings available for the LGBTQ communities in Israel that are excluded a bit unintentionally from the mainstream Tantra. And I'm compelled to do more work with couples and to bring the therapeutic dimension, like the long-term therapeutic process dimension, more into what I do. And I'm doing various trainings and learning to do that better and better at this time. So that's my intro to myself.
Thank you so much, Ram. And I think I think you're not muted yet, and I think that's why there's something.
Jennelle, for some reason, I hear a lot of disturbance in the sound.
Yeah, there's. I'm unmuted now, but there's Heidi is still not muted either. So I think she can. Hers will be good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then someone's reconnecting. And then when you're ready, Ram, thank you so much for the info. Whenever you would like to share with us today, whatever you have planned, we're ready for you. I'm gonna go ahead and mute again.
Okay, so what I prepared today was basically to talk a little bit about the connection between astrology and sexuality, because as I said, that has been my dimension of expertise in a way. I have been, so first of all, on the personal notion, I have been practicing the tantric teachings and the yogic teachings and astrology. I've been practicing that on myself for a long time. And I've been incorporating this work into my romantic relationships and into my non-romantic relationships. And I've had lots of experience in doing that with other people. And one of the things that came through is that when it comes to dealing with personal growth issues, astrology has a great power of giving insight. In a way, astrology defines the terrain, it defines the nature of the obstacles, it also defines the nature of the potential to be gained from moving through various challenges. And really, it's such a diverse system. Sorry, you can use it efficiently in almost any field on scope of life. And because I have been working with yogis and spiritual seekers, mostly in the tantric environment, naturally I was drawn to give insights about the individual issues related to sexuality and issues related to couples. So this is like two dimensions, like my own sexuality and how I deal with that, and also developing better relationships. So the two things are sort of related, but they represent two different aspects of astrology. My own processes with my own sexuality are more reflected in the natal chart, the personal horoscope, the birth chart that defines what a person is made of, so to say, astrologically, and which is like the basic step you do in astrology. You take the time, the date, and the place of birth of an individual, and then the astrologer can generate a personal horoscope and use that as the basic analysis from which you can go into various directions. The part when you work with couples is a niche in astrology, a very famous niche, which is the compatibility, like checking how two people interact and what is the potential of their interaction on various levels. Now, so I want to bring some information on how that works, because Tantra is a great system. I actually don't really know how well versed you guys are in the terminology, so maybe Jennelle, you can say something about that, so I know which terms to use.
I mean, some are pretty versed. Dana's pretty versed, and Mina probably. And then I think everyone has a general idea. I've done workshops with some and one-on-ones with others, but I tend to adapt a more like a more modern approach to explaining. So if it's something that I think that I won't, I'll just pop in and say, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, so many people ask, like, why do I incorporate so much astrology into my work with people? It is because astrology, in a way, is a way to bypass my own personal bias. Because when I meet an individual, a man or a woman, and they describe to me their past, their sexual maturity, various issues they faced, and where they stand now, and they obviously want to go into Tantra for various reasons, from healing aspects about the sexuality and the body image, all the way to using an excellent sexuality as a way to propel spiritual practice. And anywhere on that scope is within the realm of Tantra. Like, I'm not this snobbish guy who says that, like, sexual tantra is just for people who want to get enlightened and all the rest is red tantra or whatever. I think, like myself, that I was able to use these teachings to simply improve the quality of my sex life. That's an awesome thing, and I think everybody deserves to experience the fullest potential. And of course, when you deal with these things, there is a lot of trauma release and purification and healing possible. Now, I have seen that because myself, as well as many other teachers, we can be very attached to our own process, and I can be very attached to my own way of working through an issue. And in therapy, it is very important to be very versatile in many techniques and directions of work, so that you can actually identify the specific approaches that would serve your practitioner, rather than saying, this is what I did, this works, you should all do the same, and doing that. In many spiritual schools, the path is actually the path of the teacher in question. And no blame at that. A teacher honestly can teach only what they move through themselves. So the reason I'm mentioning that is because someone might have a problem in their sexuality or in relationships that can trigger a memory or trauma or a lived experience that I'm going through right now. And I've seen that many times, both myself and many other people have been a bit biased about sort of, how to say it, recommending the student to do stuff that I know that worked for me, rather than necessarily understanding completely the needs of the student or practitioner. So astrology has a bit of a more scientific attitude, even though many people don't consider it real science, of like giving a more objective issue. For example, today I've done a astrological analysis of someone that had a thyroid under activity, like hypothyroid, not hyperthyroid. And after a research, I had to find where in this person's horoscope this problem is coming. And in this particular case, it was related to the section in the horoscope that speaks on a relationship with siblings. And then I investigated about the family constellation situation of this girl, and I have seen that there is a very problematic family constellation, and there is a lot of unexpressed anger and jealousy towards the siblings. Not because of the way the siblings are, because actually the parents were giving a special attention to the siblings and not to them, this person being a step sibling, etc. And then this woman had a situation where she was raging, jealous, and angry that her sister was getting stuff from dad that she wasn't getting. But because it wasn't her sister's fault, and the parents are supposed to be perfect, she never allowed herself to blame anyone except herself. So all that went in and created, and the thyroid is here in the throat chakra, and it's about expression. So in this particular case, astrology revealed that the dysfunction of the thyroid gland was diagnosed in 2005. This girl was born in 91, which means she had about 12, 13 years of building up this anger until it went into her body and manifested as a disease. And then I consulted with a friend of mine that Jennelle knows very well, with Maha, about like what kind of treatments can be good to remove this thing. And then it was a lot of family constellation, connecting to the anger, allowing yourself to express that anger, and doing this kind of release work. So the reason I brought that example is because blockages on the sexuality, for example, can be the same. They don't have to come from a sexual trauma. They can come from even a lack of a certain element, like the fire element is not enough. That is why I would, whenever I would get a couple or a practitioner with a problem, I would most often see that I would get a certain insight, idea, opinion on how to guide them. And that opinion would always change and sometimes flip after looking at the horoscope. So I'm using the horoscope as a method to check my own bias and wishful thinking and opinions and attachment to my own story of way of being to help me understand the needs of the person. And the results are very, very good. That's why astrology has survived for so long. So I want to speak a little bit about where astrology meets sexuality and relationships. So, by the way, if anyone has questions or anything, either write them down and we talk in the end, or interrupt me. It's fine. It's a conversation, not a lecture. So the first thing is that astrology and tantra come from the same philosophical viewpoint, where this world and our body and energy and personality are not bad. They're not the rivals of spirituality. They're actually the companions. Like this, the psychology matters. The fact I'm a Scorpio matters in what kind of a person I'm supposed to be, and honoring that and accepting that and working with that is actually more efficient and more loving to Mother Nature that has given us this body and these conditions. So first of all, philosophically, astrology and tantra speak the same language. On the second level, both these systems go beyond, they include the level of the body and personality, but want to push them to a spiritual dimension. So just like astrology says, your personality is not all that you are, but resolving certain issues and developing certain issues as highlighted in your horoscope can help you realize what you truly are actually faster. So in the same way, Tantra would say it's not only about healing your traumas and having the best sex that you ever had in multiple orgasms. It's about having that and using it to realize something even deeper than that. So the addition of so Tantra and astrology include the level of healing and the level of personal development and the level of improving myself as an individual just for the sake of having a better experience in life. So it includes that and promotes that. And it says, and we want to go even more and include it in the bigger picture within a spiritual evolution. So, and this is where astrology and Tantra, in a way, is complementary to psychology, or actually help us connect to the original intention of people such as Jung when they made up depth psychology, which all this work with the energy, with the archetypes, with the personality, with the trauma, is not meant to just make socially functional people. It is meant to make people who are spiritually thriving. And this is where I have lots of discussions. Like one of my best friends is just graduated a year ago on the clinical psychology training. And I asked her, like, what is being healthy? Because she said, yes, everybody's a little bit screwed up, by the age of 30 for sure, and beyond. So she said, everyone are borderline somehow, but being healthy is having the ability, whether by therapy or personal abilities, or even with the help of psychiatric drugs, to simply be socially functional and to not harm yourself and others, and to be productive, and that the level of suffering is bearable so you don't stop being functional. And that is, and I have nothing to say against that, but that for me would be not being sick, like not having a dis-ease. But when you look at Jung, for example, he would say that if a person is functioning well by being sort of connected to the magician and the warrior archetype, but this person lacks very much the king and lover archetype. So Jung would say in order to thrive, this person has to connect to these archetypes and find a way to include them in their life, because there is a view that all these archetypes need to be incorporated in us. So, and both Tantra originally and astrology has those goals in mind. Then what I wanted to add is that in a horoscope, in a person's personal horoscope, every aspect of life can be depicted, can be read in a way, and so there is a whole chapter, like there is a whole list of aspects in the horoscope that speaks on one's journey in regards to integrating sexuality in their life. And that is why, just like I can give people a reading about what kind of vocation, what kind of jobs, what kind of services they would be good at doing and would benefit them and others to focus on, in the same way I can understand what kind of, what type of sexuality fits this person, and what kind of wounds might be there for that person in the realm of sexuality and relationships, and how to heal them in a way that is particularly efficient for this particular person, and also to understand a bit what's at the under end, like once you go from not so good to okay and thriving, how would that look like? Now, the reason that is important is because, well, like there are so many reasons why that is important, but I want to focus on understanding one's type of sexuality, because both for men and women, there are a lot of social conditioning on how we should be in sex. Like I'm sure each and every one of you can give billions of examples on how we have not been true to our sexual boundaries and needs because we felt that we need to play a certain role. And the question is where that conditioning comes from. And let's say that I do believe that I should behave sexually in a certain way. Does that really represent my own sexual identity or personality correctly? And this is a question that that is worth asking when you want to bring awareness and spirituality and evolution into the sex life. And I can say with, no, I don't know if to say it with like amazement or simply with awe, but I had situations where I talked to women and they confessed that they don't dare to ask for what they really need in sex because they're too busy behaving like porn stars because they think this is what men want to see, and or whatever, you know. I'm not saying everyone are in that state, but I met enough people who testify that and men who testify that to realize it's an issue. So the point here actually is that, as all of you know, as Jennelle can talk for probably 5 weeks, the sexual education that most people get is sick, perverted, incomplete, and definitely not in line of encouraging you to find out your true sexual identity, to cherish this and develop that and give it to the whole planet as a gift. And
Ram, I want to say something right there.
yeah,
Just
please.
it's just so good. I love this so much, and I'm just writing this real quick. Finding your true sexual identity, like this is really, really powerful because I believe it's the same with guys too. I believe that men, and correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes feel like they have to, you know, be this porn star in their own right too. And that's why they can't stop and connect with their partner and ask them, hey, are you okay down there? You know, like these sort of things that are not being said because we're both being conditioned to play these sexual roles that that we've seen on porn, because that's how people are getting their education today. I actually filmed a whole YouTube on this yesterday. So can you give us, and I don't want to interrupt your flow because you were on a good one. Can you talk about either now or later some examples of people's, I know it's different for every person, but people's different astrological sexual kind of identities, whether it's people you know, or if you ask someone if they want to give their signs and stuff, something like that, I think might be interesting just to hear a difference.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, it's absolutely true. And there was even a joke thrown in some tantra workshop where like the teacher was asking, when you and your partner have sex, like who is actually having sex to who? Like is it's my projection on how am I supposed to be and what I need to do for her versus the other person's equal projection? Then it's like anything but who we truly are right now, and that's pretty funny. So this is a whole dimension. And what's beautiful is also that when people stick to this like gender roles and sexual behavior, it's tend to be kind of unilateral. However, it is much more individualized than people might think. Like some people need a combination of verbal arousal and physical arousal. And if they get touched, but they don't get the verbal confirmation, it doesn't click, like like something in the situation is not aligned fully. So this is a room for a lot of exploration, and astrology sometimes can give a good heads up. For example, because you asked for an example, one of the typical ones is the predominance of a certain element in a person's horoscope. Each one of the classical elements, earth, water, fire, and air, are represented in various traditions in different ways. For example, Jung represented them by the archetypes, in various aspects of the elements. And for example, a lot of the people who would have a lot of fire in them, like the third chakra activated, they would have a certain need for power, dominance, and even a certain expression of aggression in sexuality. And one of the very interesting things that arose from that is BDSM. And BDSM that is done consciously, like the BDSM together with the circle of consent, etc. And I've been in many workshops, and I've attended some myself, even though it's not my thing, where people go out of their way to go into harmonious, loving, open, consensual discussion on how they're going to humiliate, dominate, and hurt each other. Which is okay. It is actually, and I know a person that just went out of the closet. Like this year, she realized she's into BDSM, and it was just like getting out of the closet, and she's going to workshops and teachings, and she said that most of her life she felt that this need for something more fiery, more aggressive, more power-oriented was simply means that she's sick. She's not okay. She's a pervert of some kind. And then it was like a revelation for her to realize that this inclusion of the fiery temperament in sex, when it is consensual and mutual, it is actually an expression of love, just like very tender, loving, soft, and romantic sex, for example. And then it can be even a very life-changing realization. Like, for example, in my personal energy, I'm a very watery person. I'm a Scorpio. So for me, sex has to be very comfortable. Like, I might fantasize about having sex in nature, but it's branches and sand, and it's far from home, and it could be too windy, and well, it's not cozy. I need things to be cozy, romantic, soft, and very, very legendary, like this romantic fairy tale typology is very watery, and that's what really fulfills me. Like sexuality without a romantic story behind it is just physical thing. It doesn't fulfill my temperament. So, and for many, and let's say that I fall in love with a fiery woman who needs this BDSM thing. Well, it might be that we would never fully fulfill each other. It's not nice to realize that about your partner, but what if I met this girl a year ago and she would go for the soft, romantic, tender sex because she doesn't dare to admit that this fiery thing exists in her. So she's in denial, and therefore I'm in the dark, and we don't even know we don't sexually fit each other's needs. Now, of course, this realization can be even devastating to some couples, but some people would say, I rather know it than suffer the consequences of ignoring this kind of problem, because they usually tend to manifest. Or on a completely different level, it can be very liberating. Like once some men and some women finally allow themselves to go into their element in sex, it has been like teenage years all over again, you know? And they know what they want, and they know how to ask for what they want, and they filter very wisely and very quickly the type of people who don't fit them. and it's a roller coaster. For example, as Jennelle knows, the tantra school that I was going into was actually a very it was very not much not encouraging femininity in men. It was like a very macho, masculine. The man has to be non-reactive, strong, confident type of place. And it had very little tolerance for men being too wishy-washy, romantic, artsy. Like that was like a social trend in the school where I was in, and that made me actually make sex in a more Spartan way. And only after 2 years in Tantra, I actually realized that I am a quite feminine man. I'm very artistic, very creative, and I need juicy love stories to get going. And once I allowed myself to go there, many things clicked in. And also, experience shows that once people have this realization, it totally changes their vision. Like they suddenly see all those potential partners who fit them that they previously couldn't see because they didn't know who they are. So it's like realizing that there's tons of opportunities where you think there's none. So
I was
that
going
was,
to just
yeah.
jump in real quick, Ram, and ask you, because I'm sure people are curious about this in their own lives. So you're saying, you know, having that more watery, romantic, feminine, artistic side of you, that's you, and that's great because that's where your power is in everything you do. So when you realized that, did you find that you were attracting more, you know, more earth signs that were, you know, more like strong, or was it more fiery signs, or what is it that you found that you were attracting more in the women's archetypes per se?
Well, I'm like my astrology is a predominance of fire and water. And while I was in a more dry state, I was attracting and feeling attracted mostly to earth signs. And the earth signs fit sexually with water signs, but they are much more dry and serious and pragmatic in a way, more physical in a lot of ways. And once I went into more the water things, I started meeting women who were predominantly water and fire, and therefore really fit with me. And it is true also, as you said, that because I have a strong need to be on the feminine side, as well as I have a need to be on the masculine side, I tend to meet women who are have a very strong masculine potential, like women who love to wear the pants and need to wear the pants here and there. Um, and that was a polarity that I saw that I was finding. Like when I became more comfortable with being the masculine guy and the feminine guy, I started meeting women who felt comfortable being the feminine girl and the masculine girl. And it actually was a very good, a lot of fun to switch the polarities in this way. So, so there were just some examples. I can go into more details, but I don't want to do it because it will just confuse you with some astrological vocabulary that don't matter. But there are ways to identify in a person's horoscope not only what kind of archetypes and elements are predominant for them, also what kind of archetypes would complete them. Because, for example, I can say, okay, I'm a water sign, I should be with watery or earthy women. But something in my inner woman can be also very airy. So then also go for the water and air rather than the water and fire. That would be more accurate.
Yeah.
So just to wrap up this point, that was just a basic idea on how I can, how I would find it more useful to want to meet a practitioner or a student or a patient and hear their story, and then have a preliminary idea on what's going on, and then bounce it off astrology to get a more accurate, a bit more scientific, a bit less biased idea, and from there to devise a personal consultation on what to do. And the results I've seen are usually very transformative. Generally in Tantra, but this was making things a bit more accelerated. So that was my short presentation on how astrology can very powerfully influence the path that people usually go through when they encounter tantric sexuality.
Awesome. That was super enlightening. And I think, I mean, I think what might be a question on a lot of people's minds, and I want everyone to ask a question, is like, if I'm in a relationship now, how, you know, what's the first step I need to tell if this is a good match sexually? And the second question would be, if I know my star sign, you know, say, you know, I'm a Virgo, but I have Leo ascendant and Capricorn moon, unfortunately. But so I also was curious about this for those who do know more about astrology. For those who don't, you know, you'll catch up. But is it more typical to go into the ascendant versus, like, because I'm a Virgo, however, you know, being the earth sign, I am pretty earth, but at the same time, I do tend to gravitate to more of the watery element, the same kind of, there has to be a romantic story or I'm not really interested, but I don't have a ton of water in my chart. So I don't know if that was conditioned from what I've, you know, been through in life or what. So I was just curious on that as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. First of all, can you remember where is your Venus?
I feel like it's Libra.
Okay, because maybe I have your horoscope. Let me see if I can find it.
You do. And I forget where my Venus is. I think it's Libra though, but yeah, I was really curious on that because I was thinking, you know, that just didn't make sense for me because the same thing about you. I feel like, oh, it'd be so nice on the beach, but then I'm like, but then there's like sand and it's just like a big turn off. I'm like, I would hate being in nature under the stars. It sounds good in theory, but that's just, there's bugs and it has to be like, for me, like Ram said, like I need it to be this occasion. And I think maybe sometimes people don't see me that way because I'm kind of, you know, this earth sign, but at the same time, that was my question.
Yeah. So I'm going to separate my answer to few chunks.
Okay.
Like, first of all, how do you know that you have a good sexual vibe with your partner? Usually, like, that would be like the most, you know, like straight up answer is like, how turned on are you about each other physically? Because a topic that comes up a lot in Tantra is the topic of like the physical versus the spiritual. And like I can love from the heart chakra, I can love anyone unconditionally, that's fine. But what to do, and I know this actually a lot from women who confess it, when women are, also men in their own way, you know, but many women told me that like with some guys, they're so overwhelmingly turned on by them, like their bodily functions transform, like the chemistry of their brain goes different, like their knees shake, they sweat, they don't think straight. And I know like there are some women who are gorgeous and I can have a very nice conversation with them, and some women are equally gorgeous, but I simply need all my faculties to think straight around them. So this kind of like raw physical chemistry is something that is very hard to generate if it's not there. Like I can learn to get along with many people, I can learn to get physically aroused at will. And it's true that for some people, the physical arousal can be vastly enhanced by falling in love and having intimacy. So it can influence, but it is a bit romantically overrated because we don't want to admit how superficial and biological we might be when it comes to being turned on. You know, like I met many people, men sometimes find it easier to admit that they are superficial and are attracted to looks. And many times I asked women, like, what's your ideal man? Like, he's smart and spiritual and good personality. And I'm like, what about the abs? Like, would it be okay if he has good abs? And of course, you know, you can throw in the abs, but it's like, you know, how about him being a bit taller than you? And yeah, that's kind of important, you know. So like these kind of things come up. So the first thing is, of course, the biological chemistry is obvious, but it's not enough, because we can have very good chemistry and yet I'm watery and you're fiery. So the second thing is that I would look at astrologically is I would analyze the predominant element, and there are certain planets that are very relevant to sexuality, particularly Venus and Mars. That's why there is this sentence, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. These planets govern a lot of this, the erotic experience. And for example, Jennelle, in your case, first of all, the water element in general is very highlighted in your horoscope. Like you have a special configuration that makes the water element particularly important for you. And also you have a very big cluster of planets in Libra, and Libra is a very Venusian. And so not only your Venus is in Libra, also your Jupiter and Mercury. Mercury is the way you think, for example, the way you relate. And Libra is both airy, and it's the most watery, most romantic, most artistic of all the air signs. And
that makes sense then.
And then we can, yeah, now on the other hand, your Mars is in Leo, which means that you love the fire and a bit of the extravagant madness in men. Like you like men who are a bit crazy and over the top.
That's so true too.
So this is how you see this stuff, and of course it takes a bit of training. Like some astrologers are less oriented towards this particular domain, which I've delved in day in and day out. So basically the predominant element and the orientation of Venus and Mars touch on understanding where we fit and where we don't fit sexually. And there are other aspects, like Mercury would govern the communication. For example, I can give you all kind of clues. When a couple has the same ascending sign, it tends to be more beneficial for long-term relationships, because the ascendant is about how we deal with life, like what is our interface with life, how we handle new situations. So when the ascendant has the same element, at least, or is exactly the same sign, people can team up very easy. It's like they're soldiers in the same corps, in a way.
Got it.
You know, because I'm Israeli, everything has to be military metaphors. Yeah.
Well, I definitely need to get another session with you, so I'm gonna call you about that. And if anyone is interested in Ram's work, I'll put all his information in there. And yeah. So, does anyone have any questions? I mean, this has been amazing. I feel like, yeah, it's okay to ask. Go ahead, Eric. Did you have something?
Not everyone at once, guys.
Hello.
Hi, Eric.
Hello, Ram. Maybe already talk about this, but how can we know what are our elements and our planets with our way of thinking, and how could we identify ourselves and the people the people that we know as well?
Yeah. So the most I can give you an answer in few layers, depending on how savvy you want to get in analyzing horoscopes yourself. So the most straight up answer would be the element of the sun. So I'm Scorpio, I'm water. Jennelle is Virgo, she's earth. So typically, like on the most superficial level, uh, water and water works, and water and earth works. Similarly, earth and earth works, and of course, earth and water. And then the other thing is fire and air, like fire with fire, air with air, and air with fire. These elements are compatible. And then you can look at the sun sign, the rising sign, and the moon sign in a person's horoscope, and see if there are certain matches coming up already. For example, like I said, also there are certain patterns you can find sometimes. For example, all my girlfriends either are Geminis or have Gemini moon. It's a pattern that I discovered, and then I analyzed where it comes from. It wasn't so obvious. So this is the first thing that you do. You look at the sun, moon, and ascendant, and see if there are any compatibilities there. Also, another very important thing that I didn't speak about, but it's a very good indicator, is the story of the opposite sign. So it is like the sign is exactly 6 months away, like opposite on the cycle. So it would be Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, Gemini, Sagittarius, etc. So let's say that I'm a Scorpio, but my girlfriend has Taurus moon. So she's not a Taurus, but the opposite sign thing still exists within the sun, ascendant, and moon. So let's say that both of us have, I don't know, we both have the same ascendant, which is, like I said, is a good sign for a couple. And our moon, my sun and her moon is like the opposite sign, and her moon and my sun is like at least a compatible element, for example. That would be already a pretty good indication that there is a click. Now, you will see and find out that most people that are anyway couples have many of these things anyway, or else they wouldn't click. So it's like kind of a no-brainer. Then if you want to take it another step, you do exactly the same thing, but you include Venus and Mars. And see, like for example, because Jennelle has Mars in a fire sign, so for a woman who's straight, like a woman who was attracted to masculine stuff, even it could be a lesbian who likes masculine women and she likes to be feminine. Anyway, when a person is attracted to the masculine polarity, so Mars represents what they look for, and Venus represents what they have. So I would say that Jennelle, having Libra rising, is a great listener. She doesn't like to confront. She's a peacemaker, and she's very creative and romantic. But her Mars is in Leo, which means a bit of show-offs, guys with big personality and a bit crazy, over the top. So, and then you can say, okay, that's interesting. So, and if I'm a man, I look where is my Mars, and then I would identify that, like for you can make a research like for the guys, look at the qualities of the sign where your Mars is. That's what makes women get attracted for you. So like for the guys who have Mars in air signs, unfortunately, these are the guys that are being attracted by women who like brains. Like women who love intelligence would be attracted to guys with Mars in an air sign. And then you're the smart guy. You're attracted because you're smart, not because you're handsome, which is like, it's okay as long as you accept it as is. So for men, Mars is like their magnetic masculine power, and Venus is what they look for erotically in a woman. And in many astrology softwares, or website, it is different, but you can also calculate globally how much of each element you have. That is a bit more complicated to do. so I don't want to confuse you, but I can make a tutorial on exactly how to do that, but it demands some calculation. So it's a formula. Once you get it, it takes exactly 1 minute after you have done the right horoscope. But then we have to go, so I would start by going to a website called astro.com. It's a website by Liz Green, and you will find in that website where you enter the date, time, and the place of birth, and it would generate for you a horoscope. And usually, most of these popular big websites would give you input that anyone can read. So like how much earth, how much water, how much fire, and the position of the planets would be listed very clearly. And then you can see also something very interesting. For example, like I said, in my elements, fire and water are predominant. Earth is okay, and air is not weak, but proportionally, it's less. And like I said, I usually end up with women who have a lot of air. Like they have this Gemini thing. So they fit me because they are fire and air, but they have an element that I don't have in abundance. And this is something that you see many times in couples. They have a lot of stuff that perfectly click, but they also complete each other in a way. So that is very beautiful to see. And funny enough, it also happens subconsciously. Like I am not an airy person, and I would get attracted to women who are watery like me, but are very airy, because it's like subconsciously you feel they have this element that would complete you. So I hope this answers the question. I know it was a bit a mouthful because I want to give you a lot.
Yeah.
But these are like few levels of like checking these things out.
Yeah, you answered the question. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Sure.
I'll put the, well, what happened here? I went out. I will put the astro.com link, and I recommend everyone take this. If you haven't taken it, do it. Get your chart done, and you can, match if you have a partner. And then if you want to go deeper into it and understand all the intricacy stuff that is astrology, then Ram is definitely the man for that. So yeah, it's just been super insightful. If anyone has to hop off, I know we are over, so please feel free to do so. But Mina has a question. Go ahead.
So, Ram, you said that in men, Mars present what they're looking for intelligently, and Venus present what they're looking for erotically. Is that the same in women?
So first of all, I want to clarify,
Okay.
because we each have what we are erotically attracted to and what makes us erotically attractive for others. Like what am I pulled towards and what I have that pulls in. So for a woman, Venus is her Venus position represent what makes her attractive. So she's not attractive to all men. She's attractive to the man who gets attracted to the kind of Venus she has. And her Mars represents what attracts her erotically in men. So like I said, for example, with Jennelle, she would not be attractive for men who don't look for a conversation as well, because Libra is a lot about the mind and intellect. So it is like a combination of being nerdy and romantic. Men who don't like that cocktail will not find her as attractive. And it's not about the looks. It's not about how pretty you look. It's about like, do I click with you on a deeper level? Because I find many women pretty, but we don't have the right chemistry. So it's just like, it doesn't have content. And with men, it's opposite. Mars is what makes them attractive, and Venus is what they are attracted to. And I gave the example that, for example, if a man has Mars in the air element signs, which are about the mind and intellect, so they would be smart because it would show that this is where they're the most masculine in the realm of the intellect. They will be smart people, sharp people, good talkers, good communicators, and women who look for intelligence, who get turned on by intelligence, would love them. And also, just to make it a bit more accessible, it's also easy to see when a man has Mars somewhere. So in that element, he would be like a hero, yeah? Like he would be strong, he would be powerful in that element. And where a woman has her Venus, she would be magnetic, seductive, sensual in that realm. For example, you can see that, just a funny example, humor and comedy is very related to the fire element. And when you see the kind of women who are stand-up artists, they're tough. You know, like they have a certain strength in them, and they are not, they don't look the typical girl, and they shine in comedy, but they have this fiery thing. And there are the guys who would be very bad in seduction and flirting, but you put them on stage to give a lecture and like, bam, like they do the best lecture ever without even preparing. That's attractive to some people. So again, this is quite easy to see where people shine in this way, and the horoscope tells you that quite clearly. And yeah, I know we are over time, so I would just say that maybe next time we go more into the relationship thing, because today we spoke a lot about the personal sexuality temperament. And next time I can talk a bit more about the relationship. Maybe you can do more Q&A, but I really enjoyed the talk, and thank you for inviting me again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and that sounds great. We'll definitely do that, Ram. I appreciate your time and energy, and just always so insightful. Always learn so much from you. So thank you again, and I will put all the information in the links for your YouTube and everything that you have to offer, your website, if they're interested in working with you. So next time, yeah, we'll get
so
into
much.
that. Thank you so much, and yeah, thank you all for being on, and I hope you learned something. If you have a question, you know, we can definitely get in contact with Ram, because I'm going to give you his info. And yeah, it was just awesome to see all your faces this morning. So does anyone have any other questions before we close?
No more.
No, just wanted to say thank you. It was very insightful.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll make sure I put the Astro in there in the email with everything. So, and Ram's information as well.
Thank you.
Oh, all right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Ram.
Thanks, Ram.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Jennelle.
We'll see you next in 2 weeks then.
For sure.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jennelle.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.